Chapter 6. School started on Wednesday, the last week of August. It was a day we'd never forget, because that was the last time we saw Wilbur Truesdell. The morning began with the color pink. Nana had plainly refused to answer any of my renewed questions about the accident and Gacy, even using the insulting word pestering. She busied herself with packing something called hummus in our new matching pink lunchboxes and those in our new matching pink backpacks. I slipped in 3 books, including my newly beloved Huckleberry Finn. Our father hugged Biddy and me goodbye and told us to have fun. Nana imparted advice: use a Kleenex and not your sleeve. And mind your P's and Q's, whatever those were, as if we'd never been to school before. My last farewell was to Willowdale Princess, who was faithfully waiting for me by the backyard fence. I petted her nose and bravely let her eat out of my hand, which was still terrifying with her big slobbery tongue and gigantic teeth. I wish I could bring you to school, I said, giving her the last of my apple. I'd tie you to the bike rack, but after what happened at Gacy's, such a shame. I had wanted to make my grand entrance riding a royal cow. For the first time in our lives, Biddy and I ran to school instead of riding the subway, calming my nerves for the first day. We ran down Landlark Lane until we came upon Jimmy riding his skateboard in front of Micah's house. He was attempting a new trick and was actually wearing all his clothes and a pair of shoes. Also, he had a brand new hairstyle, a mohawk. Whoa, Jimmy, I said, what happened to your hair? Did it myself, he said proudly, running his hand across the top. Micah, I hollered excitedly at the house. Hurry up! I heard nothing from Micah, but the door of the little house next door opened a creak, and the head of a reddish-orange hair peeked out. A crabby voice called, "Hush up!" It was Miss Myrtle, the old witch who had made it her mission to ruin our summer by yelling at us from inside her house every day we passed by before noon. Usually we just ignored her, but sometimes I couldn't help sticking my tongue out. A door slammed, and Biddy and I turned to see Micah running down the front steps, nearly tripping over his sparkling shoelaces. His hair was neatly parted, weighed down by comb marks, and smelling strongly of hair product. He was wearing his brown-rimmed glasses, a Boy Scout shirt, and clashing green and yellow striped shorts. I was pretty sure he was going to get beat up on the very first day. I really like your sparkly silver shoelaces, Biddy said encouragingly. Micah beamed, puffing out his small rib cage underneath his scout shirt. I didn't know you were a Boy Scout, I said. He got kicked out, Jimmy said, skating past us, for wanting to make pies instead of campfires. But he makes a real good pie. I like pie, Biddy said. Ma says that girls like a man in uniform, Micah said, his smile enduring, toothless smile. I vowed that no one would be beating him up today. We were almost past Miss Myrtle's house when we heard Gacy's voice. Turning, we saw her out on the porch in dirty work clothes. Farewell, young scholars, she bellowed just as Wilbur came hobbling around the house. Yoo-hoo, Wilbur, my exquisite, absolutely resplendent flowers are still scattered all over the lawn. I hope it's cleaned up before you disappear with that mistress of yours, Gacy hollered. Wilbur's picking up all the flowers that weren't ruined by your cow and putting them in the house, Jimmy said. The whole place stinks, thanks to you. Almost makes me want to move out. I said I was sorry. Where do you really live anyway? I asked. Why do you ask so many questions? He asked back. She's practicing to be Biddy began. I know, Jimmy yelled. She sure doesn't like that mistress, I said. You do know that the blue mistress is the tractor, don't you? Jimmy asked. I stopped walking. Tractor? This news was altogether much less exciting than an actual mistress. Wilbur spends so much time with the tractor that Gacy called it his mistress, Micah says, and it's blue. You thought Wilbur had a real mistress? Jimmy cackled. Who'd you think it was? A Smurf? I furrowed my brow, picking up a fallen crab apple to throw at him. Hush up! Came the crotchety Miss Myrtle again. Biddy suddenly yanked on my hand, making me drop the apple. Goose! The white fluff came waddling just as we passed Miss Myrtle's front walk. Biddy and I ran, but Micah stood still, holding out his hand as the goose came closer and closer to him. Micah! I screamed, but the goose didn't eat him. Instead, it stopped and let Micah gently pet its head. How does he do that? Biddy asked. He's a goose whisperer, I said reverently. Get off my property, you nasty child, Miss Myrtle railed from inside. She sounded like she was on her last breath and still couldn't resist a nasty comment. Unrattled, Micah kissed the goose right on the beak and skipped toward us. Ha! I yelled, sticking my tongue out as Miss Myrtle's house. I bet she let that goose out on purpose so it would eat us. I saw that, you bratty little girl. I could hear the old woman yelling, Gacy hollering, and the goose honking as we ran to our first day of school toward the red rocket slide shooting right to the moon. It was already the most exhilarating first day of school I'd ever had. Put my kiss in your pocket, honey, I told Biddy outside her classroom to remember me. I instinctively felt my own pocket, a small, fragile memory surfacing of Vienna. Biddy looked up at me mournfully, her eyes wide and already tear-filled. Gwynnie, I want to go with you. Be brave, like Wendy. She turned, greeted by a smiling first-grade teacher, while I felt my heart go walking right out of my body. Micah slung his arm around my shoulders just as a big boy with greasy, disheveled hair walked by, knocking his elbow into the back of Micah's head. Sorry, he laughed over his shoulder, big, dirty buck teeth sticking out of his mouth, his eyes trained on me. Jimmy's eyes narrowed. Travis Maynard, Micah said, rubbing his head. 8th grader, head creeper, archenemy number 1. My eyes followed Travis and the other creepers down the hall. Gacy had become my archenemy when she tried to bury me alive, but Travis didn't look like a harmless marshmallow either. Let's go to the library and check out a wrestling book, I said. You don't check out a library book to fight Travis Maynard, Jimmy said. And he would know, Micah whispered. They're cousins. But Travis hates Jimmy because of me. Oh, why because of you? Micah shrugged a bewildered shrug. I concurred. How could anyone hate Micah? Well, listen, you can find anything in the library, I began. Kung fu, snake bites, poisonous elixirs. Jimmy ignored me and led us down the hall. There were 2 classrooms per grade at Crow Elementary, but the 3 of us entered Miss Law's 6th grade classroom together. My nerves were all jumpy again as I wondered about my new class, suddenly missing Public School 57 in New York City, where Brian Peppernick had surely found someone else to annoy. Mr. Quintal, a firm-looking teacher, greeted us. Jimmy sighed and handed over his skateboard. The teacher turned to me. I'm guessing you're Guinevere St. Clair. We're so excited to have you join us. Yes, I said. I just took my sister to 1st grade. She can read because I taught her, and her name is Biddy. Miss Law nodded seriously, her perfectly straight gray hair brushing her jawline. And you have the perfect name for a teacher, I said sincerely. She smiled and gestured her arm for me to enter the classroom. 15 students curiously eyed me. Mrs. Law had me sit next to Penny Jankowski in the back row, a pretty girl with light freckles and blue eyes. I'd met her a few times that summer thanks to Nana's matchmaking. Penny was nice and all, but not nearly as exciting as Micah and Jimmy. "Hi, Gwen. Are you for real friends with them or something?" Penny tilted her head at Micah and Jimmy, making a face. "We're best friends, like 3 musketeers, plus my sister Biddy." "Welcome to 6th grade, Miss Law said from the front of the room. Did you know that Jimmy was held back in kindergarten?" Penny whispered. "He's really like 12. "So what? I skipped 1st grade, so I'm really supposed to be in 5th, I said. "And have you met Micah's mom?" Penny whispered, making a crazy sign around her ear. I was no fan of Gacy, but I couldn't help thinking, you should meet my mom. "We have a new student this year," Miss Law said. "Guinevere." I scooted my chair back and stood up straight. All eyes came to rest on me. Jimmy flipped me the bird under his desk. "Guinevere just moved to Crow to live with her grandmother, Nancy Eyre, who made the most delicious souffle for the playground raffle last year, and her mother and father and her little sister, who has just started 1st grade. Miss Law winked and walked toward me. "Over the summer, we made something for you and your mother, who we know is going to get better." She handed me a homemade booklet with drawings, well wishes, and signatures. "Thanks. You can call me Gwen," I said to Miss Law. "All right, Gwen it is," Miss Law said. "Gwen, can you tell us where you moved from?" "New York City." "That sounds very exciting." I nodded, thinking of Vienna's temper tantrums, which were usually the most exciting event of the day. "And what are your aspirations in life?" "Oh, I'm going to be a lawyer," I said, "like the prosecuting attorney Georgia Pyle. I know all about her cases, and once she had to try a man who sold his twin baby girls so he could buy a moped. My father is Georgia Pyle's dentist, and she has very nice teeth. And thank you for the book." "Well, you're welcome," Miss Law said, looking slightly scandalized and partly amused. "You tell your mom to feel better." I heard the word mom somewhere in the room, and a few kids glanced at me. "Let's get started," Miss Law said from the front of the classroom. "Mother, Mom, not Vienna." I held the handmade book tightly, suddenly feeling a great wave of homesickness for a person I hardly knew. I shook it off, turning my face to the tall windows to let the morning light lay on my face, sinking out my father's words. "Serotonin is a neurotransmitter, a chemical that introduces a happy feeling when the body encounters light. Let me tell you about the day you were born, on a perfect sunny day."